Hello, mental health clinicians. Suzanne Connors-Zink, Dawning Visions. Hypnosis here to speak to you about a situation that is uncomfortable for most people. And that is whether or not you feel your colleagues actually respect you in the work that you do. You know, many times it's hard to get a real assessment of how other people feel about the work that we're doing, other than perhaps if you have a supervisor with whom you work and who you actually respect. God knows I've had a lot of supervisors and directors of programs that I had zero respect for over the years because of their incompetence, to be honest with you. However, it does feel good to have people give me really good feedback about the work that I do, especially my own colleagues, and that's been happening since I got into the world of hypnotism. In fact, I never had that in the conventional world of mental health. More often than not, I found myself being talked down to, being disrespected, being told I wasn't doing it right. And yet, my clients were really happy with the work that I was doing with them, and I actually helped many of them to leave the poor programs, supported housing programs that they were living in, because they were not being helped. One in particular, who was basically being poisoned by the medication he was court ordered to take, and yet nobody in this supported housing program ever noticed his blue lips or his blue fingernails, probably because I didn't give him much, shall we say, interest. They weren't interested in him. As a paranoid schizoaffective person, he had some pretty deep problems, and it was a very unstructured program, and he needed structure, and I found this out after learning a lot about how schizophrenics think in entering their world, something that we learn in hypnotism and neuro-linguistic programming training, that the whole goal is to enter their world and to help them by leading and pacing them to achieve the objectives that they have for their healing. We don't make their objectives for them. They tell us their objectives for their healing process, and then how they're going to know that they are actually healed. A much better way to work with anybody, in my estimation, than deciding that everyone has a pathology, even though human beings do have normal emotions that they used to learn how to self-regulate before medication was developed to so-called take care of all this stuff with a pill. Many of these pills are toxic over time, and many of these pills do not do what they say they do, actually. Not really, when you look up the actual research on them, which I've done over the many years I've been writing blog posts and doing podcasts, etc. So, if you're not feeling like you're respected in the profession, I guess you need to ask yourself why that may be. Is it because you have unrealistic expectations for yourself in terms of what you can do to help people? Because you need to have motivated people who are willing to do what they need to do to heal, or they're not going to heal, pure and simple. And if you're working in an agency and you don't have any choice over who comes into your practice, well, that can be a problem. So there are different things that are involved. Or maybe you've had bosses that didn't get along with you, or maybe you had bosses that were threatened by you. I think that was my biggest problem in the places I worked at. I had a lot more insight and understanding of what my clients needed than the directors of the programs that I was working in, who didn't seem to have any understanding of how people with serious mental illness need the structure and they need the help that they need. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in those programs. It's kind of crazy, but that was the reality at the time. It's going back to like 1994 to like 1996 or so. And then I got into elder care, and it was a lot better situation. I had bosses who were wonderful and supportive and helpful with realistic expectations. That helps. But in any case, it might actually be a good idea for you to have some talks with some of the people who are in your field and get some feedback in terms of how they feel about the work that you're doing. And I always ask my clients, I have no problem doing this. At the end of every session, I always ask them what were the two main learnings that they received from the session. They need to get at least two, otherwise I didn't do my job. Hopefully they have a lot more, but we don't have all day at the end of the session to have them talk about all of them. But it does two things. It helps me know that they actually did gain some real value from the time we spent together, and it also ratifies the fact that they got the information that they needed and are learning and growing from the sessions. Really important if you want your people to progress, to be able to ratify the fact that they actually are learning and progressing, and not just deciding that, they know what they know, because they don't, especially when you're doing hypnotism and neuro-linguistic programming, which are subconscious processes, meaning they operate in the subconscious mind. Many times our clients don't even recognize the fact that it was we who helped them, unless we help them to understand that, right? By demonstrating to them how their thinking has changed, especially if it's changed a lot in a period of time that we worked with them. I had one client many, many years ago who was being walked all over by the people who she was living with at the time. And basically, she was the person who was helping them to be able to stay in the house that they were living in because they were totally incapable of managing their money. They made good money, but they just spent it all on alcohol and drugs and partying and whatever, playing. They didn't really want to put money into the house, and they had some pretty serious issues. And of course, one of the main objectives was to get her the hell out of that house and that environment and to get her into her own place, which we certainly did do, but it was really hard because she was very close to her godson, who was the son of the couple whose house she was living at that time. They had bought it together at the time. It was a pretty complicated situation. But she learned how to take a stand for herself. She learned how to actually take a stand where I was concerned. And, part of me was like, oh my God, this doesn't feel so good. And the other part of me was, oh my God, she's actually taking a stand for herself. This is like amazing, great growth. And I would point this out to my clients as I recognize the shifts and changes they've made in their lives. I had another client who was in so much pain, she was in bed for 5 years, pretty much, because she could not move. And the doctor said she was seeing at Mass General Hospital, both the ones in mental health and physical health could not help her. And we found out that it was really somaticized trauma from when she was very young that caused the pain, and we were able to release it over a period of working together. And she really did very well for a pretty long time. Even being able to complete her doctorate in education, which she had done all the courses for, but couldn't do the thesis for because she was too sick to do anything. But about 1.5 years after we were complete, she actually did get her doctorate in education, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. And she also separated herself from the person she was living with, who was also the chair of her doctoral program, so that she could actually heal. He was pretty abusive to her, and it was not a good situation. So we have to be able to hold boundaries for our clients and help them to create boundaries that are helpful for them, as most of you do know. And as we do these things and we teach them these things, they can give you the feedback in terms of how they're growing and what they need more from you and what they want less of from you. Sometimes they want less things. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes you can't. Kind of depends on the situation. I had a conversation with a client of mine yesterday who was not very happy with me because I was holding her responsible for taking care of the things that she could take care of instead of constantly complaining to me about, oh, I'm mentally ill and I can't do these things. Well, you know what? You can do these things, you will do these things. And inside of the time that we actually talked together, she had the thing taken care of. She's very smart. She's very capable of finding the information she needs to, people she needs to talk to get the things situated. And she did in a matter of a couple hours, But first she has to get all angry and be all complaining on, and I don't stand for it because I take a stand for my clients' healing, not arguing for their illnesses. That will never help them heal. Something that I learned in the many, many trainings I took with Matt and Todd James over the years in neuro-linguistic programming. So get the feedback from your clients. Ask them what they've learned, what they're getting from you. I even asked that same client, because it was a pretty hard session, if she really needed to continue seeing me and another psychologist she's seeing for EMDR. And she said, yes, he does EMDR, and I'm not going to see him forever, and you keep me real and on target to take care of the stuff I have to take care of. So she gets it, she may not like it, but she gets it and she respects it. And that is what we need to know. And that's probably even more important than the respect from your colleagues, is the respect of your patients, for them understanding that what you're doing is helping them heal. If you're having any of these issues, like with imposter syndrome and these kinds of things, I do offer counseling through hypnosis NLP, and you can find my information below so you can set up a consultation if you want to get rid of that stuff. And if you want to actually learn how to integrate hypnotism neuro-linguistic programming into your healing protocols, I do a 2-day VIP training with a 12-month mentorship, and I only do one a week or less, actually, because I have to do the mentorships, obviously, so I can't take on everybody who would necessarily want to do this work. But if it's a good match and it's something that you're really interested in doing, again, the information on how to contact me will be below in the description. That's all I have for you for today. As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time, bye-bye all.